Hello, welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television, your morning program on Echo Television, where we keep you updated with all that is happening on the papers. We're seeing that the protests have actually rocked Ibadan in regard to protesting concerning the hardship, and then we also saw yesterday Labour actually also organized a protest talking about they will go on with the protest for about 2 days or so to actually express their grievances and also their displeasure with the hardship that is going on presently in the country. These and many other stories are what we will be looking at this morning on the program. I am Sarah Shadasho, and I'll be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
Thank you so much. And so our viewers, please do remember you can stream live on Facebook and on YouTube, and then drop your comment and your views as well on any of the story that is of interest to you. And we will start looking at some of the stories, starting with the Leadership newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Wabuze begins final journey home Thursday. You can find details on page 22. Senate rejects 17 trillion naira laws on tax waivers. We have trending Nigeria missing from growth list of 11 African countries. And on numbers, we have 1.2 trillion naira, 5.5 million jobs to be lost to ban on sachet alcohol. This is still concerning what NAFDAC is planning on doing, and then, protests coming from NLC and TUC concerning that new development. You can find details of both the trend and numbers on page 2. 47 billion naira debt, AEDC threatens to disconnect Aso Rock and 85 others. Truck owners strike, minister intervenes as fuel queues build up. Details can be found on page 10. The big story on the paper, hardship, no end in sight as protest continues. Where hungry, tired oil residents cry out. More Nigerians flee the country. Labour mobilizes for nationwide protest next week. Details can be found on page 4. Governor Bago excited over leadership award. Federal government cement producers agree on 8,000 naira per bag. Again, government abduct 8 passengers in Kogi State, and on cool regional citizens dialogue for launch next week in Abuja. More details can be found on page 4, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the First News newspaper, we feel your pains, Senate tells Nigerians. EFCC grew ex-Kwara Governor Abdul Fatih Ahmed. Federal government installed 30 second biometric gates for immigration at airports. 46 of our members have died due to hardship coming from ASU. Only armed forces police allowed to use camouflage uniforms coming from the federal government. Unemployment rate rises to 5%. This is coming from the NBS. It was 4%. Now we're seeing that in the third quarter of 2023, it have actually rose to about 5%. And on hardship, which is the big story, protests spread to Ibadan over the high cost of living, with a rider as Tinubu's children beg Nigerians to be patient with the president. Have faith in my father, Sheyi Tinubu tells Nigerians. Be patient with my father, president's daughter appeals to citizens. Nigerians slam Tinubu's son for preaching endurance. You can find more detail of that. And of course, Nigerians would definitely not listen to, because it looks more like a spoiled child coming to tell the poor to actually, endure and all of that. I know, looking at even what the Senate is saying, I really do not know, Rachel, but I doubt Nigerians will actually listen to the Senate and to the president, because, Nigerians will feel, you are very distant from our pain. You have no idea what we're going through. Yesterday, there was this picture of the day where we saw kind of a Benz, and then we saw some hungry children surrounding the Benz, and then on the Benz was a Nigerian coat of arms on it. And then it was actually showing the children with a plate begging for food. And a number of people say this is the reality of Nigeria presently, that a number of people are hungry. We are having more than 26 million of Nigerians presently hungry because of the issue that is at hand. You cannot even touch the maize, not to even talk about the rice, not a number of things you cannot even talk. So I really do not know how the president nor his children nor the Senate asking Nigerians to actually endure the pain that is going present, because it's very, very difficult. The way things are going in the country presently, Richard, it's more like we are on a time bomb. It's just a matter of time before it will blow up. And I just hope that it doesn't get to that, because we're seeing that protest is beginning to go. We saw that in Niger, went down to Kwara, down to Kano. Now it's in Oyo State. I really do not know which state is planning to go next. But believe you me, it doesn't have a color, it doesn't have a region. Hunger is on everybody.
It's on everybody.
And it doesn't choose it who is going to touch. So I'm just hoping that the government actually has something more, a proactive measure that they intend to go into to actually help the way things are going presently. Because actually listening to Sheyi saying that, I mean, Nigerians would definitely not listen to it, because he has no idea what they are going through presently.
Why are our currency still being floated, Sele? That is one simple question. Are we trying to say that we can't reverse such a policy that is putting us in a position like this? It's a policy. It can be done and undone. In the first place, the currency wasn't floating, and now you're floating it. Then stop floating it and do it. Sele, I will keep saying it. The government knows exactly what to do. Knows exactly what
Richard,
to
but
do
I doubt if
what
they
is
do
happening.
know. If they do know, why wouldn't they do the right thing?
Why would we think that our government don't know what to do? They are refusing to do it. That's the situation we find ourselves. They are refusing to do it because they refuse to be selfless. It's like politicians, our senators, the son of the governor, president, the daughter coming out when all of your bill is footed by the government. You're saying endure hardship, your subscription is being paid by the government, your car is being filled by the government, you're living rent-free wherever you're living, you are not paying for your food. We see the kinds of budgets we get from the State House of Government concerning vegetables, fire extinguisher, fragrances for offices. We're seeing all of these things, and none of this is coming out from your pocket. No single thing is coming out from your pocket. And you want Nigerians to think that you know what it means to endure hardship when you have no idea whatsoever, because despite the rise and in the cost of living, you're not feeling it whatsoever, because these are still taxpayer money. The people that are hungry on the street are literally the people sponsoring your lavish lifestyle. And you tell me, Sele, that the government of Nigeria don't know the work that they are supposed to do to stop all of this. They know it in the first place. Tinubu didn't know. Are you trying to tell me that Tinubu didn't know that when you remove fuel subsidy in a country that do not refine their oil, that this won't happen? He's not that dumb. I mean, except if he is, but I believe he's not. He knew that that is what would happen. We're not refining any oil, we're importing it. You remove subsidy and float your currency. It feels like wickedness, if we will say the truth concerning it. Maybe we've been lenient about addressing what really is in the country, but it feels like wickedness, because these two things cannot go. These things cannot align whatsoever. You cannot remove subsidy and then float your currency. Exactly, knowing very well that you import back this oil into your country. And these are the kind of policies that we see taking place from our leaders, and then it's just disheartening on a lot of levels.
Honestly, Rachel, when you just say disheartening, it seems as if there should be a bigger word than disheartening, because it really, really is. We just look forward to seeing, you know what, if the Senate are actually telling Nigerians that they feel our pain, then I'm looking forward to seeing them making other measures, just like you made mention. You can reverse those policies. I mean, those policies are not do or die policies that you cannot go back on them. You can't go back on them. No wonder IMF are very, very certain that the government is still paying subsidy for fuel, because it doesn't just make sense, or it's not being realistic when we say we're doing that. And then we just have to look into maybe industrialization, looking at what can we do about that. We made mention of some of our industries that are lying idle. What are we planning to do about them? In as much as we keep hearing money is being injected into Ajakuta steel mining and other industries that have been lying dead. How about talking about our textile industries as well? So I'm looking forward to seeing the government doing something. But when it comes to food, it's an immediate need, and I do not know how the government will do it, but they really, really need to do something. If you say you feel the pain of Nigerians, we can actually see a picture story here. Some of the Nigerians displaying placards during the protests against the current economic hardship in the country in Ibadan yesterday. One of it here is open border and hardship. You can see it very bold on the front page of the first news, so you can read more detail of that. Now, still in regards to other things about the rise of costs and services, we're seeing cement manufacturers giving the federal government conditions to slash prices. Now they're saying there are certain things that the government needs to meet up if they have to reverse them. Here we are saying that the government is saying that they will actually talk about making a bag of cement 8,000 naira. Well, let us see how that will turn out. Alleged 3.5 billion naira misappropriation. Labour Party state chairman demand Abure's resignation. You can find more detail of that. Ayeda Tiwa detractors are idle hands, says campaign group. And downside, we're seeing Lions more OAU zookeeper during feeding. Well, we're seeing that even our lions are hungry. So we hope something will be done regards to that. And that's all on First News newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, 92% of Nigerian workers in informal employment coming from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Edo 2024 ABC Youth Women Take Over Secretariat, 1 sack of SWC. I won APC primaries with over 6,000 votes coming from Akpebolo. And then we have Dekeri storms Ganduje's office, demands certificate of return as Emus congratulates Ida Hosa. You can find details on page 29. Federal government cement manufacturers agree on 7,000 naira or 8,000 naira for 50 kg bag of cement. Wale Edun Cardoso SEC management team visit Wigway's parents. You can find details on page 15. The big story on the paper, Forex crisis. 2024 budget suffers major dislocations. Benchmark exchange rate now half the value. Revenue expenditure estimates unrealistic. Analysts see profligacy pushing up deficit to 20 trillion naira. More details can be found on page 5. Senate kicks against 17 trillion naira loss on tax waivers. And on ECOWAS crisis go on, turns down federal government ECOWAS invitation to speak on issue. And on electricity, Forex crisis, inflation push meter prices up by 80%. There is a column on page 16 by Dakuku. And for sports on page 37, 2025 AFCON draw holes in Cairo today. Suspected armed herders invade 3 Benue local government areas, kill 10, injure others. Kidnappers abduct 9 passengers in Kogi and demand 30 million naira. More details can be found on page 8. We're still having picture stories showing the protests against hardship in Ibadan State, and that's all news on Vanguard newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Shehu Sani is saying state police is migrate receipt for anarchy. Says it will be used by governors to persecute opposition and harass non-indigens, rig election, counter federal police in case of conflict of interest between the federal government and the state. Where I do not know whether the pros and the cons of this, but then we hope to see more detail of what will be the outcome, whether they will listen to Sheikh Hussaini, the former senator, or not. Naira hits new low, dips at official market to 1,598 naira to a dollar, declines at the parallel market by 1,730 naira. More detail found on page 5. Dangote, BUA, Lafarge agreed to reduce cement price to 7,000 after meeting with the federal government. Lament rising gas rates, import duties, and others. These are part of the reason why they have to increase the prices of their products. So we will see how the outcome of that meeting turn out to be. Red Cross declares Nigerians' hunger crisis alarming, demands immediate attention. Says time to act is now. And then the PDP saying Tinubu is overwhelmed, lack capacity to lead Nigeria. And then we're seeing his officials not telling him the truth. He removed petrol subsidy without planning. And then youth protests in Ibadan against hardship. And then we're also seeing a picture story here during the condolence visit to the Asagba of Asaba. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune newspaper, the big story: manufacturers agree with federal government to slash price of cement. Companies lease conditions, says product won't sell more than 8,000 naira. Experts differ as food inflation increased by 40% in 8 months under Tinubu. Unemployment rate in Nigeria rose to 5% in the third quarter of 2023, a report from MBS. APC Edo Guba Primary, they carry another aspirant storm party secretariat demand for certificate of return. Residents in Ibadan protest over economic hardship, want Tinubu to act fast. Federal government commences payment of withheld ASU salaries. Legal luminaries pay tribute as Oyo judiciary holds valedictory court session for Akeredolu. You can find details on page 11. And from SEFA, Oyo disburses 500 million naira to 2,078 small business owners. More details can be found on page 5, 11 to 24. Lion kills OAU zookeeper. This is really sad. You can find details on page 25. 9 passengers kidnapped in Kogi. Abductors demand 2.6 million naira. At the downside of the paper, Abuja discuss threatens to disconnect presidential villa, barracks, and 84 MDAs over 47.1 billion naira debt. You can find details on page 7, and I believe this is a little bit embarrassing that we are having the presidential villa under threat to be disconnected from electricity. More details can be found on page 7, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Richard, it's not embarrassing. Yesterday, you remember when I mentioned the reason why there was a time where we saw that even some federal institutions were actually being disconnected because they did not pay their NEPA bills. So they just had to. I mean, how do you expect this sector to operate when you do not pay? Now we're seeing that the money that the presidential villa, or even following our MDAs and all of that, are actually owing the discourse over there. It's quite a huge amount of money, almost running into billions of naira. That's about, I think, 26 billion or so, they say. And then they actually mentioned even the police military barrack around there. This is what they're owing. And then you ask question, the fact that a government establishment doesn't make you or exempt you from actually paying certain bills. How do you want them to run? We're talking about the cost of gas, we're talking about how they need to generate. We're seeing that even the price of meter have increased. Our electricity tariff have increased, Rachel. So if you and I will pay electricity bill, why wouldn't they pay electricity bill?
And that is why we said.
Exactly, Rachel. That's why I said nobody's above the law. So I'm hoping that maybe, which I doubt, that we'll hear that there is no light in the ASO Villa. But then I'm just hoping that, you know what, let us just realize that the fact that you're a government establishment does not exempt you from actually paying certain things. You should pay for all of that. So I'm just hoping that they will actually do what they're supposed to do.
I mean, Sala, during Buhari's administration, we saw one breakdown of the ASO Villa expensive one time, and there was electricity bills included in it. And we were wondering, how much are they consuming this much? It was running into billions. And then to see that this cost in Abuja is also threatening the ASO Villa, it just shows you corruption, that somebody did not pay this bill, because there was a time we saw a breakdown for expenses in the ASO Villa, and then there was electricity bills, and Nigeria was like, what kind of electricity is the ASO Villa consuming that is running into billions of naira? And then now today we are seeing that they have not paid their bills, and they are also threatened like a common Nigerian for disconnection and all of that. And that is why I couldn't help but say it's very embarrassing, because these are private companies. We've sold electricity business, and it has been privatized since Obasanjo's administration, starting way back at that time. That was the peak of capitalization in Nigeria, and we've been having the PHCN from NEPA. We went to PHCN like and all of that. And then it means that now it's not going to be free electricity, because it's no longer run by the government, and it is now discourse from GenCos, as we've seen it, down to discourse and all of that. And then for whatsoever reason, we shouldn't see this on the paper because we see breakdown from these organizations and they always include energy bills, electricity bills, and then to see that is not being paid, then it means it's just another level of corruption as far as I'm concerned, to show that people are not paying their bills, including the government, and it reflects in their expenses, but then it shows that it haven't been paid to the people who are supposed to have access to this cash, and then it just shows that, you know what, our system, Sele, is rotting to the core on a lot of levels.
Of course. Well, I was saying 20, and then I just realized that the leadership have it at 47 billion naira debt. So I'm just hoping that we'll look into that, Rachel. Just like you said, it's embarrassing, but well, I just hope that made it to the paper will be able to wake up and do the right thing eventually. Well, I guess we'll move to the next paper, which is the Metrics newspaper. And on the Metrics newspaper, starting with the big story on the Metrics, let us flip to that place where we have anxiety as Naira's free fall continues, with the rider Naira inches closer to 2,000 Naira on both the official and parallel windows price soar. And then still on the Metrics newspaper, local currency seems to be defying various policies by the CBN. Naira didn't clash because of bad policy. It crashed because government borrowed $1.5 billion to defend its monthly. And then we have urges Nigerians to curb appetite for foreign goods, patronize locally made products. More detail of that story can be found in the paper. And then we also have hashtag revolution now protest. Court strike out treasonable fellow charge against Sowore. You can find more detail of that inside the paper. Still on Metrics newspaper, NAFDAC ban. This stills to lose 1.2 trillion naira investment, 5.5 million jobs. Still on the issue of the banning of the sachet alcoholic drinks. Again, custom import duty rate rises to 2.9% as Naira weakens. More detail on page 11. And on our economy, Nigeria's unemployment rate increased by 0.8% in the third quarter of 2023. Mbappe already signed contract with Real Madrid. This is a report you can find on page 16 for sport lovers. And then we have my previous error makes me keep my relationship private, coming from Nessie Eke. That's talking about Nollywood actress. For those who are into the movie industry, you can find more detail of that on page 15. And still on the paper again, Tinubu comes under attack for removing fuel subsidy without plans to cushion the effect. And then we are having tragedy as lion mauls OAU zookeeper to death. VC order immediate comprehensive probe. You can find more detail of that. And we have a picture story, deepen biometry ties between Nigeria and Brazil, which we saw started on the paper from yesterday. And then Nigerians have sigh of relief as cement manufacturers move to crash price of products 7,000 naira or 8,000 naira, to crash the price further once federal government intervention is fulfilled. More detail of that found in the paper, and that's all in the Metrics newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, the big story, APC knocks PDP governors over call for Tinubu's resignation. You can find details on page 4. Protesters defy police in Ibadan, lament high cost of living. You can start with details on the front page. Nigeria loses 17 trillion naira to tax waivers. You can find details on the front page and continue on page 6 of the Daily Times newspaper. EFCC grills ex-Kwara governor over alleged diversion of 10 billion naira. Stakeholders flee labor union in action over economic hardship. Naira falls to 1,720 against the dollar at parallel market. At the downside of the paper, domestic airfares to rise further as aviation fuel hits 1,600 naira per liter. Details can be found on page 4. Still having picture stories of the protests in Ibadan, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. And on the Guardian newspaper, talking about road infrastructure development, federal government grants 4 trillion naira tax credit in 5 years as inflation threatens scheme. Here we're having inflation may slow the pace, and then Nigeria needs 438 trillion naira investment in infrastructure over the next 10 years, and this is something we should have done a long time ago in regards to infrastructure, because it is needed to actually boost other sector of the economy. So we look forward to seeing what the government would do about that. And then we still have EFCC grill Kwara ex-governor for alleged financial impropriety. That's talking about more of that. You can find that on page 28. Protests over hardship spreads to Oyo as 26 million Nigerians grapple with hunger. Zulum sack IDP camp boss for wash facility diversion. You can find more detail of that on page 29. More detail file. We know that Borno have always been supported by NGOs, and here we're seeing that somebody is actually diverting these funds that were supposed to be used to actually help the people in the IDP camps. And no wonder we're seeing that the people in the IDP camps, Rachel, are not being fed well. Yeah. When you take a look at them and then you look at our international NGOs that are coming into the country, especially in Borno, you see them quite a lot. That's talking about one of them, which is the WASH. And then we're seeing that there are many other NGOs that are supporting the those who are internally displaced persons over there. And then here we're seeing somebody somewhere sitting on that phone. And then I wonder how you could be excited and happy eating money that is not even yours, that are supposed to use to take care of somebody there. So I hope that this will be an eye-opener. And there is not only in Borno that we actually have IDP camps. We have them virtually in most of the states in Nigeria.
We do.
So I hope that this will be an eye-opener, that our governors will start going there to check, to make sure that funds that are supposed to be used to take care of the internal displaced person will actually be used to take care of them. Not that somebody somewhere is actually diverting those funds and using it for his own personal interest eventually.
It was allowed. That was why you have something like that happening, because one person cannot just single-handedly do such a thing. And there are procedures, and then there are process. It's like a truck of grain getting missing. One person cannot just do away with a truck of grain. One person cannot just sit down on billions of naira and all of that. There must be aid and all of that. And it's really sad that these funds are coming your way as the administrator, because these people are hungry and displaced. And then how do you feel that for some reason you should be the one sitting down on it and not giving it out? And it's because it's being allowed, because it didn't just start now. What happened that this feeding program, the food that was sent was supposed to last a week, and it only lasted 3 days, and nobody said anything. I think we have a mentality of keeping silent until it gets bad. But I believe that corruption should be tackled from the smallest level. When we leave it and we allow it to grow, then where would you even start pinpointing the problem for, and then how would you be able to tackle it? It's really sad. It's a mindset thing, and then it's just so unfortunate. These people are displaced not because of their will in the first place. They wish to be on their farms. They wish to be able to make a living, have their own meal, feed their family, and do whatever is needed. And then also a problem that needs to be addressed is that I believe that funding for IDPs go more to the north than what we have down here at the Middle Belt. We can look at Benue State, the IDPs there and all of that. This is also something that needs to be looked in, because these are people facing a problem that is caused by the system. No IDP should be treated better. Will more grains go to where there are more internally displaced people? Yes, but that doesn't mean another place should be looked at differently or should be cared for less in any way. So I'm just also looking at these kinds of lapses to also be looked into. It's not only about who is sitting on it, but also why are others getting more than others, when you are supposed to make sure that you know what all internally displaced people, by the NGOs, the international aid funds and all of that coming in, that they get it equally also.
You know, Richard, what I feel, I think the reason why maybe the corner is actually get is because of the insurgents that started there. But I feel that it will be wise, just like you rightly mentioned, that the government will look, all right, since we are now having that no longer in just Borno or Zamfara now, that's gotten to even Benue State, what can we do that each time this facilities or this money is being sent, how can we also channel it to those other places? Because this is just a way to support the government with what you already have on ground. So I think that this is like a little bit opening the eyes of the government to see the fact that, okay, we have this, we are lacking in this area. How can we balance so that everybody will be treated equally, not that one IDP camp is treated more than the other? But I hope that they will all get, I mean, it's our desire that they go back to their homes, because just like you said, they do not want to be there. Some of them are being raped even while in the IDP. We have cases like that. So I just hope that the government will look into all of these things that are happening in the IDPs, and then nobody is speaking for them. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have the issue of unemployment rate that rose by 5% in the third quarter of 2023, says the NBS. More detail found on page 4. Senate flays the 17 trillion naira loss to tax waiver and others halt. You can find that on page 3. Naira drops to the new all-time low at black market, trades at 1,730 naira to a dollar. I'm just getting afraid that we'll get to 2,000 naira very soon. You can look up that story on page 2. How insecurity, hunger threaten Nigerians' existence. This is an editorial which you can find on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all on the Guardian. But before we move further with other paper analysis, we would love to take a break at this moment, let you through the stories, and when we come back, we'll continue the paper analysis. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thank you for staying tuned. If you're just joining the program, is the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, top of which is we're seeing that our unemployment is about 5% now, which was actually rose by, by 5% in the third quarter of 2023. Senate is actually telling Nigerians to endure. The children of the president are telling Nigerians to please be patient with their father. He's looking into what he will do concerning the hardship. And then we're saying that the residents of Ibadan, talking about Oyo State, have actually taken into the street yesterday to protest the issue of hunger, where we're seeing about 26 million Nigerians are presently hungry. So a lot of things are happening in the country. We would love to hear your own view concerning all of these things that are happening in the nation. We're seeing our Naira has actually gone down again to over 1,750 Naira or so at the parallel market. So this is really a sad one, because this would definitely affect the prices of goods and services in the market. So we'd love to hear what your own views are. You can drop it on Facebook or on YouTube. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is Nigerian News Direct.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story, we have it being a power. This is a statement that the protesters in Ibadan are chanting, and then decry hunger, insecurity, as PDP accused Tinubu APC of being overwhelmed, lacking capacity to govern. You can find details on page 9. Edo 2024 aggrieved party members demand sack of state ESCO as Dekeri petition APC NWC. Elumelu to deliver keynote address at 2024 ECOWAS Mining Forum. Lion kills OAU zookeeper. Digital Access Tijani unveils project to connect local government across the country. You can find details on page 2. Federal government clears additional 2 months salaries backlog as ASU demands for complete payment. You can find details on page 8. Picture stories still showing the protests going on in Ibadan, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
A New Telegraph newspaper on the issue of high tariff, more Nigerians abandon imported vehicles at the port, clearing the 2019 Toyota RAV4 now 9.57 billion naira, and you wonder the price of the car and the price of actually clearing it is really high. I think you actually discussed that from last week Monday till yesterday. You were talking about the cars that have been abandoned at the ports because of that. I just hope the government will do something about that. We don't want the situation whereby we see that because people can no longer come and clear it, and then we see cost of auctioning it out because to those who can actually price it. I mean, it's really a painful one that you maybe buy the car at 4 million naira, for example, and then you are clearing it twice the price. I mean, it's really a very sad one. But we hope there will be a better way or a price. I know that the custom actually increases for one thing or the other, but I think we discussed, that was it last week or so, that the price is actually outrageous and that custom needs to do something about that.
Actually, my simple question to Cardoso, the CBN governor, is that this thing that he's doing, does it make sense? Precisely hiking the excise duty, the clearance fee and all of that, because the exchange rate for clearance is different from what we have. And my question to the CBN governor is that, does this make sense to him? That a 2019 RAV4 will be cleared for 9.57 million naira. It's okay if you increase certain percentage and amount for clearance to generate more revenue. But if this amount and if this percentage increase becomes that which that business no longer flows, then you know that is already a bad decision.
It's a flop already.
It is already a flop, and then you should do something about it. And this is where I wonder, where are our leaders heading with the kind of policies they make, with the kind of decisions they make, with the percentage increase they put and all of that? Where are they heading? Anything that has to do directly with consumption and of the masses in the country, you have to put consideration, regardless of what kind of revenue target you are having to derive from this product. You still have to put it in a way that is accessible, because in the end, if people cannot access it, you don't make that,
you don't make the gain you actually want.
Exactly. And then you only put people in the position, I mean, I can't even imagine. It's still hardship on another level, because there are people who need this car. Car is not a luxury. Vehicles are not. It's a necessity. We need it to move, to run daily affairs. It's only in Nigeria that owning a car looks like a luxury, or it's a big man thing, or it's for the rich, and all of that. Is really sad, and these are the reasons that makes it somebody that would be able to buy a Toyota RAV4 now 2029 model will literally be a big boy. And when you see that car, it's not even a luxury car in the first place. It's just a normal, simple, mini SUV Toyota vehicle. Exactly. But you have to be really rich now to be able to afford a RAV4. And then it's really sad. So I just hope that we just sit down and then do the needful, because some of these policies, I just wonder, some of these trading laws, duties, excise duties, percentage, I don't know where the sense is when it comes to what we have our government doing. But I just hope that they really sit down and consider the common man in Nigeria, because nothing looks like the common man is put in sight when it comes to these decisions.
I'm just pitying car dealers, how market is for them these days with the way things are right now. Well, let's look at more stories on New Telegraph newspaper coming from the CBN. Credit to economy hit 113.1 trillion naira in January. You can find detail of that on page 8. See the New Telegraph newspaper, Senate frowns at 17 trillion naira lost on tax waivers. Coming from Ibadan, tributes as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the AGF, Ondo Governor Oyo, CG and others pay their last respect to the president, the governor that died at Kiredodo. Detail found on page 28. And on aircraft dry lesser, we have Nigeria begins process to exit risk status, more detailed on page 3 and 5. Benue local government areas under siege as herders intensify invasion, and we hope and we are looking forward to what the government will do about that, because it's becoming too much for the residents of Benue State, and we hope that the government of that state and also the IGP will do something about making sure that peace is being restored to that state. And on the issue of the worsened hardship, we are having the 42,000 metric tons of grains in the federal government's strategic reserve and silos coming from Bugaji. Says the government rented out all its silos, can't control the prices of produce it doesn't have. Nigerians grappling with problems, Buhari planted, coming from the Middle Belt Forum. Stop the blame game. ASAF tells the federal government and governors. Ibadan youth protests and call for good governance. And I remember, Rachel, when we were talking about the 42, we said it's not about giving it out. The supply and the demand is not balancing.
Yeah.
That's just it. When you look at this whole thing, the more you give, what plans are you having to make sure you have other food back into the reserve again, because you've not actually made security available to farmers.
True.
So after giving out these grains, what plan do you have to make sure you have more grains back again in the reserve, just in case of another rainy day that Nigerians will need it? And some of these riders, you just have to be strong, not to attach emotions to it eventually. But
Difficult feeling.
it's very difficult.
I mean, no wonder it now makes sense why the federal government will go from 102,000 metric tons of grain to 42,000. Because, of course, the first option is better than this second one. And then it only makes sense that, you know what, you don't even have that much grain in the first place.
We do not have it.
You've rented out your silos. You know, the beautiful thing about these things is that the more we dig deep and we just see these news unveiling, that the more many things come to the surface, and then you realize that that was definitely a better option. And then we are going for a less option that might not even be impactful anyway in the first place. And then you will see that the government has rented out their silos and all of that, so they don't really even have those grains and all of that, so you can't control what you don't have. It only makes sense. And and that's the thing about reserves. You need to have, and when you're taking out, it has to be replaced. Then it's no longer a reserve anymore. It is a reserve because it has to be consistently there. And if you're taking out and you're not putting it back in, it's no longer a reserve. It was just a storage. You just stored it for a time period. But a reserve means it can't go empty. It has to be refilled. Exactly. And then we are seeing that the Nigerian government don't really have reserve. You can't help but be sad, because the more this is out there, the more you know that is it going to get any better? Can they crash the prices of food in the market if they don't have what it takes to crash it? And then it means we'll just have to tighten our seatbelts and just see how the wind blows us in Nigeria concerning food insecurity.
Honestly, Richard, this is a real-time bomb, and I'm just hoping the government really know what they are doing. Sometimes you just can't help to say, maybe we should have had a Joseph of our time that maybe was able to interpret the dream of 7 years of plenty and 7 years of hunger. Maybe that would have given our government, but the signs were there. When farmers were shouting, were crying, do something. And then here we see you didn't do anything.
Predictions like
there
4
were
years
predictions
ago
a long time,
and climate change, and all the things that would affect production.
All of these things were actually
we saw where potatoes got in on the plateau because the production was low, it was expensive because of diseases and all of that.
Yes.
There was also that same attack on tomatoes and all of that. Now we're even looking at a closed cycle, and then we can't stop talking about the insecurity that affected rice productions in the country. We had farmers massacred on the farm, on their rice farm.
Even the flooding destroyed some of that,
and all of these things, and then nothing significantly was done, and no wonder we are where we are looking at the fact that we are also having subsidy removed from it's just, you know,
one problem, but they're just piling
it's just
up
piling up,
eventually.
yes.
Well, let's look at the story. Still on the same paper, New Telegraph, federal government accept partial blame for the high cost of cement, and then they peg the price at 7,000 or 8,000 naira. You can find out on page 5. And then coming from Delta State, kidnappers write threat letter to vigilante chief. You can find, I just hope that they take that letter seriously and put measures so that we don't have another attack happening in Delta State. Navy uncovers 14 illegal crude oil processing sites in Rivers community. And on the alleged 47 billion naira debt, we have the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company is threatening to disconnect Aso Rock, ECOWAS, UN, World Bank, CBN, and National Assembly building. And then we're seeing power, finance, FCT ministries, and others too. So it seems as if almost every government establishment in the Abuja is actually risking a disconnection. Tanker driver strike, panic buying in Lagos and others. And we have the Miman absolves self of impasse, and then we have the PETROAN seek solution and justifies the union action. More detail of that can be found on page 2. Now we have a study that says caffeine vapes could damage lungs and cause cancer. So you can do well to read more detail of those who are actually addicted to caffeine and all of that on page 26. And that's all the New Telegraph newspaper.
On Teen Trust newspaper, Kano schoolgirls sensitized on negative effects of skin bleaching. You can find details on page 4. Sudan schools win over 25 million naira at Kellogg's Superstar Essay competition. You can start with the details on the front page. Community gives indigent pupils 5.4 million naira WAEC forms. You can find details inside the paper. And then we have columns you can find on page 7 on lifestyle, page 5 career, page 14 well-being, and then short stories on page 10. And that's all news on Teen Trust newspaper.
On the Business Day newspaper, weaker naira see fueling the cross-border petrol market, which you can find detailed on the front page and inside the paper. Nigeria plans local government broadband access misses 50% target. Foreign investors find fewer states to inject capital in the fourth quarter. How federal government can fast-track the CNG adoption as rollout slows. Unemployment rises for second time since method review. You can find more detail on page 7. We hope that the government know the way forward to actually reduce this unemployment rate. It's just some of the policies, and then the environment is really causing where a number of people have been laid off their jobs. So we're seeing that the number keep increasing. You can find more detail of that on page 7. We're still having the picture story of the protest that took place in Ibadan. And that's all on Business Day newspaper.
On Punch Sports Extra, hard men. Onyeka Basi best tacklers at AFCON. Champions face B's test. This is Man City versus Brentford. Palace appoint Glesner after Hudson exit. Osimhen may play 50 minutes against Barcelona. And we have Spain's I6 San Siro win. This is Inter Milan versus Atletico Madrid. And then we have Salah doubtful for EFL final. Then we have Havertz releases goal scoring form. Devils still fragile. This is coming from Ten Hag. We have Disasi fires Chelsea teammate warning. At the downside of the paper on badminton, Okoyori retains African title. Southside wins NCF Under-17 championship. The big story, Niger boys. High-flying Osho and Adebayo confirms availability for Eagles, I believe, the AFCON 2025 qualifier matches. And that's all the news on Point Sports Extra.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sally.
And also thank you to our viewers. Thank you to our supporters. Thank you to the crew members for making this program prompt on air until we come your way tomorrow. To have a blessed day ahead.